also understand that a number of railway bridges and the railway network in Western Russia has also been attacked. I'm not sure that the Ukraine military or the Ukraine security services have claimed responsibility for this, but again, it's had a profound effect. And again, it's making it very aware to the Russian people that things are not going well. And that's why I think it is so crucial. And if what is coming out today or at the moment about the attack on the Kerch Bridge, you can see that that Russia is very much on the back foot here. So, yeah, I think great praise for the Ukrainian Secret Service.
From your perspective, what does Vladimir Putin feel about these attacks on Russia's strategic aviation? Do you see this as a major humiliation for Vladimir Putin? Because Russian destroyed aircraft, for example, Tu-95. This aircraft is no longer in production in Russia, so Moscow cannot replace these planes with other new ones. How do you feel the Putin's reaction to this? What does he think about it right now?
Well, I think Putin must be absolutely humiliated. As you say, these planes, even if Russia could rebuild them, they will take a heck of a long time. And the fact that some of them are out of production, and the fact that Putin and his advisors have been lauding how brilliant these weapons are, and of course they have moved them far away from the Ukraine border because they thought they were untouchable. Now nothing is untouchable in Russia, and the second order issues that poses to the Russian military are very, very large. So yeah, I think Putin's humiliated, and we'll come on to it, I know, but the first reaction was, I think, probably at the negotiation table in Istanbul yesterday, where the Russian delegation put a ridiculous peace plan on the table for discussion, which really showed, how desperate the Russians must be, and Putin is really running out of road here. And let's hope, when we look at other things like the oil price crashing down below $50 a barrel, a lot is going very badly for Putin at the moment, and let's hope that continues.
And also, how do you see the main consequences of this Ukrainian attack on Russian strategic aviation for Russia's nuclear deterrence?
Well, this is another issue of great significance. It is these aeroplanes that carry the Russian tactical nuclear missiles, which Putin and his advisors have been threatening threatening Ukraine with, and even threatening Britain with frequently recently. It now makes it much, much more difficult for Putin to use his tactical nuclear capability with so many of his aircraft destroyed and unusable. So I think, again, it's taking another key weapon out of Putin's arsenal, which he has used to threaten the West, and actually, I think it's worked with a lot of European countries until recently have been terrified whenever Putin threatens tactical nuclear weapons. But actually now, I think people can realise that a lot of his capability to launch them has been destroyed, and we see that across Europe with a lot of European countries now rearming, spending a lot of money on defence. And really, at last, showing Putin that Europe is serious in its defense and serious in its support to Ukraine.
In our previous conversation, we discussed some people in the Kremlin who could be unpleasant, and also who could not support Putin's regime, who could be unhappy about this war. Do you feel that recent attacks of Ukraine, these attacks on Russia's strategic assets, could even make these people more unhappy about Putin's regime, and could make Russian generals more unhappy about Putin's rule and this probably biggest military disaster and military humiliation for Russia?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, there are lots of rumours, and we've discussed it before, of a lot of discontent in and around the Kremlin. And it's thought that SBU have assassinated several Russian generals in the Kremlin and elsewhere. And these people now seeing, the disaster that happened with the SBU attacks over the weekend, I am sure that discontent will only grow. And, Putin seems to be reinforcing failure at the moment. And Russian dictators who fail rarely stay in post for long. And the fact that, as I said earlier on, the Russian propaganda machine is really not making any headway at all, not making any sense at all. And one does get the feeling that the walls are closing in on Putin, and no doubt there will be several people in the Kremlin who would very happily replace him and then perhaps start again. So yeah, I don't think Putin can afford many more errors and many more disasters like the Russian military has suffered this last weekend.
Do you feel that these attacks deep inside Russia could become another turning point of this war and could help Ukraine to turn the tide and force Putin to make any kind of concessions?
Well, certainly that is what one hopes. And if we were dealing with a rational leader like Putin, that is what would come to fruition. Unfortunately, we know that Putin is an autocratic dictator, and I expect his own self-preservation is higher than his desire to do the right thing. I mean, it's clear. One of the elements is where was all the air defense protecting these important jets? Well, we know that Putin has removed a lot from the front line to protect himself and his own palaces rather than protect key assets. So yeah, I stand by. I think this is a key moment in this war, and if the SBU and the Ukrainian military and Ukrainian president can keep up the pressure, and if Europe can really get behind Ukraine, and hopefully, I mean, the one variable that is so variable that it's a bit of a worry is President Trump. We haven't really heard anything coming out of Trump in the last couple of days. And if he keeps supporting and throwing his weight behind Ukraine, yeah, all of this could be enough to tip the balance. And hopefully, as everybody wants, the Russians coming to the ceasefire table with a proper and realistic plan for peace that gives Ukraine a just peace and a peace and a ceasefire deal that the Ukrainian people can accept.
You just mentioned about the position of US President Donald Trump. Trump has not yet commented on these attacks of Ukraine deep inside Russia. However, we know that he has been saying that Ukraine, quote, doesn't have the cards. Don't you think that now this is a moment when he could realize that President Zelensky and Ukraine do have the cards to actually have an upper hand in this war, to prevail in this conflict?
Yes, I think absolutely. Even Trump cannot dismiss this as anything but a huge strategic success for Ukraine. Now, it is clear that President Trump, does not necessarily go into the detail of these things and doesn't understand it. It's pretty clear as well that Ukraine's military operational security, as we call it, has been absolutely excellent. Obviously, the Russians had no idea this was happening, and it seems pretty clear the Americans didn't either. So it is a demonstration, I think, very clearly to President Trump and the Americans that Ukraine does have the ability. Ukraine can move forward and can defeat and push the Russians out of Ukraine, if they are given all the resources that they need to do it. So let's hope that President Trump is clever enough to realize this and clever enough to know which is the side to back, and obviously gives Ukraine all the support they need in order to prevail, in order to get the Russians to the ceasefire table, to get a just ceasefire and peace for the Ukrainian people.